Hello, welcome. So we're going to be talking about all things Dock2Dock, and just a little note on kind of what we're going to be covering today. So we're going to be talking all about your plan with 6 weeks to go. I hope that's not a horrible shock for anyone. Apparently, as human beings, we have a bit of a bias, which makes us think we've got more time than we actually do before a race. So if that's a bit of a shock to you, I'm sure you're not the only one. With 6 weeks ago, I picked out the topics that I think are just absolute game changers, and I wish someone had given me this pep talk a little while back when I was kind of making my way with open water swimming for the first time. So we're going to be covering mindset, training, technique, tapering, kit, and fueling, and a few other bits as well as a bonus. So we've got a couple of raised hands here, just to check. Yes. Okay. So if you can't hear me, that is your audio, not mine. So just have a fiddle around with your audio and hopefully it will all work out. A quick note on who I am and why I'm here. So I'm Rebecca. I'm the co-founder and head coach at Catch. We're the coaching partner of Noka and Dock2Dock. I was an international swimmer a long time ago. Pool swimming, but also multi-sport, aquathlon. I am a two-time Dock2Dock swimmer, and here are 2 times I swam Dock2Dock. One was quite a while ago. That top picture was me in 2017, having done the 10K. And having Googled it, I won it, but it wasn't very competitive back then. It was a much smaller event than it is now. And then that picture below is of me last year, also the 10K. But I've done all sorts of distances. We're coaching tens, possibly over 100 swimmers for Dock2Dock. So definitely like a safe pair of hands to guide you through today. And yeah, as I mentioned, I'm coaching a lot of swimmers through Catch, thousands actually, open water swimmers, all distances and abilities, mostly here in the UK, but some internationally as well. So yeah, it's really brilliant to meet you all. As we're having this presentation, we've got this chat at the bottom. I am not going to be looking too closely at it, but we will jump into a Q&A at the end. And I want to give loads of time for your questions. So if your question does get a bit buried in the chat, feel free to pop it again at the end. There will be time for us to cover all of your questions, but I'll keep a bit of an eye on it as we go. Just a very quick note on Catch for anyone who's like, what on earth is that? It's basically like having a personal coach in your pocket. So it gives you a personalized training plan, video technique course, one-to-one coach chat with me, basically everything I wished I had when I was training for Dock2Dock and similar events. We're going to start with the thing that I always think is so underrated, which is mindset. It is honestly your secret weapon. I call this the performance enhancing drug that you're probably not using and is totally legal. A little bit about kind of basically how you can do this thing called training your mind, which honestly, you should train your mind before you even really start training your body, because it is that important. So some exercises that, I mean, if you've got a pen and paper and want to have a quick bash at this right now as we're going, feel free to, give it a go. So find your real why. This is, you might have heard this in like corporate speak, but it's basically finding the root reason why you're doing this event, why it's exciting for you. And it's so underrated. It's like an absolutely brilliant exercise to do. Just write it down, real quick sentence, stick it somewhere you'll see it. That could be something like, I can do hard things, or it can be something very specific, like a very specific reason why you want to do this event, what fires you up about it, and come back to it when things get tough. Another thing that swimmers, like I found really works for swimmers and myself, is naming your fears out loud. So if there's anything that is affecting you, like making you feel nervous, that is making you feel concerned about this event, writing it down or saying it out loud to someone you trust is a really effective way of taking the power out of those fears. So again, if you've got pen and paper right now, feel free to jot those down. So visualize the swim. So you might have seen this in like high level sport all the way through to like any kind of aspect of like business. People use visualization as a very like proven and effective tactic to help you get in the zone and ultimately perform well. So visualizing your swim is a brilliant thing to do. You might not be super familiar with the Docklands. It might be your first time swimming, but I'll just give you a few little bits so that you can visualize it. So the Docklands is often really, really calm. It's like one of the most reliably calm open water swims I've ever done. So you can imagine this like urban landscape around you. You've got skyscrapers, you've got planes taking off from London City Airport, and you're swimming in this amazing group of like multicolored tow floats, swim hats, kayakers. It's an amazing atmosphere. It's incredible. So I would suggest that you really give it a bash, give this visualization tactic a bash. Building a mantra is like a short thing, and it's slightly different to finding your why. Your mantra is a sort of short thing that you tell yourself in these moments, maybe in the event, maybe in a tough training session, that keeps you going. It keeps you positive. So it's really positive in nature, and it's something that's really sort of personal to you. There's a whole host of different examples, but again, if you're not really sure, just reminding yourself that, you know, the best experiences you've ever had in life probably had some sort of challenge associated with them. And again, knowing that you can do hard things. So yeah, I would say that's a really, really effective thing and so worth doing, like during those type of training sessions or races. And then tapping into the good stuff of event day. It's a nerve-wracking thing. Like, it's adrenaline. Adrenaline is great because it can spur you on, but it can also bring with it nerves and some negative stuff. But generally, I suggest like tap into the good stuff, tap into excitement, joy, self-belief, for example. These genuinely are fuel for you having the swim of your life. So yeah, it's all about like grabbing onto the positive and trying to wave away the stuff that isn't really serving you on race day. We'll move on from mindset to training. This is exactly how I would suggest you use the next 6 weeks. Some of these things you might already be doing. So I would suggest between 2 and 4 sessions a week. I mean, you're doing a really diverse range of different distances, and you're going to have a number of different goals. So some of you will be doing it to do the distance and to have a lovely day out and to challenge yourself and to have just like a great day. And some of you might be pushing the pace, trying to get a personal best. You know, maybe you're looking at a possible podium. Either way, you know, 2 to 4 sessions per week feels about right. Like, we find that's quite a sustainable balance. And if you do that between now and event day, you're going to be in a decent place. My second tip on training is never skip technique. If you're only going to do, say, 1 session a week, you should be working on your technique. And we'll talk a little bit more about the specific techniques you can be working on. But technique is number one. It's the way you improve your swimming fastest as any other type of training. 3 threshold sessions. So this sounds a little bit jargony, but threshold sessions are basically where you push your heart rate up. So if you've ever heard of interval training, it's like that. So you're basically alternating between, you know, your fast pace and taking it easy. And it's amazing for boosting your fitness. So your second priority after technique should be threshold. And then your sort of third part of that mix is building towards like continuous swims. And this is something that often people, they spend all their time doing, just sort of plodding along and trying to sort of cover that distance, that goal distance. But what I would suggest is prioritize your technique and your fitness swims before you do the kind of steady plods. They're part of the mix, but by no means are they the only kind of swim that you should ideally be doing. Another tip about training is just don't cram. Like, it doesn't work with swimming. What you'll do is you'll just kind of build quite a lot of stress and fatigue in your body and your brain right before event day. you're best off resting in the days before your event, which we'll go on to talk about when we talk about tapering. And finally, a bit of a myth is that you need to swim the full distance of your event before event day, and that's actually not true. What we tend to suggest is swim between 60 to 70% of your race distance. You don't need to swim more. Like, you can, if you're doing a 1.5 or a 3K, even a 5K, you can swim that before event day. But if you're doing a 10, a 15K, you really don't need to. It's about accumulating volume over the weeks and months that you're training. It's not really about like one or two big swims. So moving along, we're going to talk about technique. As I picked out, this is such an important part of your training. So let's break down what 6 weeks of technique work could look like. So this is a lot, by the way. So honestly, no pressure if you don't get to cover all of this. But if I were to take you through like a perfect 6 weeks of preparation, this would be it. So first of all, week one, I would work with you on your head and body position. So get your head and your eyes down. Something that really commonly happens when people go to open water is they start lifting their head up and their eyes up to see where they're going. Sighting, as we'll talk about in a second, it's important, but you shouldn't be looking up all the time because it causes your body to sink. Your body acts like a seesaw, where if your head lifts, your legs will typically sink, even if you're wearing a wetsuit. So it's a really important one to practice, is get your head and your eyes down, and it will really help your body position. Your body needs to be high in the water. And this combination of techniques is all about reducing drag. At the end of the day, swimming is just about reducing drag and increasing propulsion. So if you're doing one or two of those things, you're doing a good job. Let's talk about breathing as well. This is such a common one. I'd say, like, the number one source of, maybe like race anxiety on the technique side is often breathing, that breathing feels hard. What I would say is trickle breathe out when your face is in the water. If you're not already doing this, 6 weeks ago is a really nice time to practice this. So you shouldn't hold your breath anytime in swimming. What you should be doing is gradually exhaling when your face is in the water. So make sure you get some practice in doing that, and you'll be amazed at how much it relaxes you, but it also frees you up so that then when you do turn your head to take a breath, you've got these free lungs. They're available to take in a sip of air really quickly, and then you can crack on. The other point is kind of having your eyes to the side. You don't want your head kind of lifting up and out of the water. Going back to the head position point, your legs will start to sink. So try and get your eyes not looking up at the ceiling or the sky, but rather looking to the side. And that will mean your breathing is much more smooth and efficient. Finally, I just want to mention about the kick. Your kick is not actually there to propel you forward for distances of 1.5K and upwards. It's actually there to balance your body and, again, to support your body position. So it's really about kind of getting your body in the best possible position. Quite often people will go out quite fast at the start of an event. Like, you get excited, the nerves are there, the adrenaline's there, and their legs start going. And this is a really, really easy way to gas yourself out. So yes, that would be my other sort of key technique to practice, is don't totally neglect your kick, but work on having an effective kick that gets your legs nice and high in the water. This sort of other section here of techniques are all about getting outside, like getting out into open water. It sounds pretty obvious to say it, and I'm sure you all know this, but swimming in a pool is so different from swimming in open water. And it makes an enormous difference if you're able to get out, say, once a week in the run up to the event. It will be amazing what that does for your sense of comfort in open water. So take your swimming outdoors like as much as you reasonably can. I know, you're all really busy people, but yeah, it's so worth it, and it's fun. It's lovely swimming outdoors, as I'm sure you all love it because you're signed up for this event. Sighting is how you navigate in open water. It's really, really good to practice. You can practice it in the pool. You can obviously practice it in open water. But it's extraordinary, like how many people will go into an event having not practice sighting. What I would say is the navigation of Dock2Dock is incredibly straightforward. You're swimming in relatively straight lines, then you're spinning around and you're coming back. So, you know, the water is also quite clear. Like it's not the kind of murky conditions that you might be used to in other lakes. So yeah, I would say it's still really worth doing, because it's extraordinary how much people can veer off and you just lose a lot of energy, and it can be quite disorienting and stressful if you accidentally befriend a kayaker who's just sort of off on the other side of the course and you've gone off in the wrong direction. So practicing sighting is really good. And if you're trying to do this in a pool, a good way of doing that is just put something brightly coloured at the end of your lane, like a bottle. Alternatively, if you're in open water, you're very, very well set up to practice. So it will be, yeah, like just a case of sighting to your next target. So your next buoy, where it is you're swimming, just try and get comfortable with that feeling of like blending it into your swimming. A bonus is learning to draft. For those of you who are sort of gunning for a performance time, a PV, whatever that might be, learning to draft is actually brilliant. So sitting on someone's feet, sitting on someone's hip, those are the two ways you can draft in swimming, and you can actually save up to 30% of your energy by doing that. The slipstream effect is amazing in swimming. So equally, if you need to take a break and you're in, you know, a little bit of a crowd in Dock2Dock, this is quite a neat hack for saving yourself a bit of energy, particularly if you're doing one of those longer distances. Great, we're going to move on to taper. Rest is training too. I think a lot of people underestimate the power of rest. So yeah, rest is important throughout all of your training. So over the next 6 weeks, you do need to build in rest. You need to build in days where you do very little exercise, if any. Your body needs to recover. What happens when you exercise is your muscles experience a number of tiny tears and they need to repair themselves. So if you overload or you're doing something that your body's not used to, you might have experienced this thing called DOMS, and rest basically enables you to overcome that, absorb the benefits, move beyond fatigue, feel fresh again, and do quality training. So rest is really important, but we're going to focus on the 7 to 10 days out and what a taper is. So it's the opposite of cramming your training. It's the opposite of like heading in to open water or a pool and being like, my training starts now. That's when you need to switch on rest mode. So drop your volume to about half is brilliant. Keeping your sessions quite short and sharp. Yeah, like a couple of these shorter sessions are really nice. Like some people, that makes them feel amazing. Some people really like to just completely rest in the week before an event. I'm one of those people. I'll often just not swim at all in the week before a race. Carb load gradually, but like enjoy your pasta nights or pizza nights, because like building carbohydrates, it's not like a dramatic increase, but you do just want to build up these carb stores. We'll talk a little bit more about how important carbs are in a second. Simplify everything you can. Like life is complicated, you're all busy. I know that you can't control the stresses of life, childcare, work, whatever that might be. But sleep, nutrition, rest, like that's ideally what you should be prioritizing. So anytime you can, be protecting your energy and simplifying. And then get race day ready. Like the perfect feeling is if you arrive on event day. This isn't always possible. Like you might have like quite patchy sleep the night before an event. That's totally normal. But if you can arrive feeling like restless, like a tweet, I call it like a tightly coiled spring, ready and raring to go, that is the perfect feeling, because it means you've stored up all this energy, and that's what's going to get you through that, you know, that big distance or that big goal. So moving on to kit. Yeah, you really want to trust your kit before race day. So the real kind of nature of kit is just have nothing brand new. Like, you know, it can be something you got in the last few weeks, but ideally you've tested it out at least once. So wetsuit or swimsuit, whatever you're wearing, just make sure you've tested the fit and that you're comfortable. Check those chafe points, because you will want to wear anti-chafe, which, yeah, I actually haven't put here, but anti-chafe cream is brilliant. If you want any tips for any of those, feel free to drop it in the chat. Goggles, get a pair of clean lenses. I do think getting a new pair, if in doubt, is worth it, because being able to see is so important. We talked about the importance of navigation, but it's also enjoyment. Like, you want to be able to see those planes flying over your head. You want to be able to see what it's like in the Docklands, in that section where you might not usually swim. So it's really brilliant to have a clear kind of new-ish pair of goggles. Van's just mentioned Noka Perks, definitely second that. There's some really good brands on Noka Perks for you to get a pair of nice goggles. Treat yourself, like you're doing a hard thing, you deserve it. Anti-fog is so anti-fog, actually, one thing that works really well for anti-fog with goggles is just like a drop or two of baby shampoo and something else that is a natural thing that all of you have accessible to you on race day is saliva. Weirdly, it's really, really effective anti-fog. So you might have seen people like spitting in their goggles before an event. That's why. A toe float, you have to have one. But you can also use this to carry food or drink. And we are going to talk a bit more about fueling in a second, and hydration. But this could be really, really worth doing, particularly if you're doing a distance of 10 or 15K. Pack the night before. You might have seen people do these like flat lays on social media where they lay out all of their race day gear. It's actually worth doing just to check you've got everything and make sure you don't feel stressed. So definitely recommend you pack the night before and just kind of lay it all out and check you've got everything, check you're happy. Warm layers for after. It's amazing how quickly you might cool down. It might be a roaster, but it also might be a cold, you know, you can just cool down after having had a big effort in water. So just do be prepared for that. So have a jumper on hand. And it might be a smart move if you're slurring your words on the finish line, if you're feeling like your hands are a bit clumsy. Those are like, you know, the earliest signs of hypothermia. It's pretty unlikely at this time of the year, but you know, September, anything kind of could happen weather-wise. So it's worth just being prepared to like get out of your wetsuit, get warm, get dry, get some layers on. Fueling up, yeah, so carbs 30 in the 30-minute window afterwards. So this is because as you're swimming, you do deplete your carb stores. So getting in some fast release sugary food, whatever your preferred thing might be. There's some great food vendors at Dock2Dock, so you can buy it there, or you could bring your own favorite recovery snack. Again, you've earned it. Fueling, yeah, let's talk about the good stuff. Fueling. This is Mark, one of our catchlings. He like turned up at Chill Swim recently with 2 packs of donuts, and I was like so happy with that. He handed one to me and my co-founder, even though, yeah, we were there to support rather than swim. But he basically like loves donuts after a swim, and we'll talk about why. So pre-hydrating, this is worth doing. Like, you know, obviously hotter day, hotter water temps will dehydrate you faster than if it's colder, but broadly it's just a really good thing to turn up hydrated to an event. So electrolytes are really good to take like maybe a couple of days before, the night before, and again 2-3 hours before. Yeah, start the race already hydrated. 40 grams plus of carbs per hour is the goal. So all you need to think about is carbs. They are like the only thing you need to think about when you're in the water. It's all about replenishing those stores of carbohydrates, which you will rapidly work through when you're in water. You will work through your stores more rapidly the harder you're working. If you are going at, you know, hell for leather pace, you will need much more than 40 grams. And if you are a larger person, you will need much more than 40 grams. But if you are more petite and you are going at a very slow pace, you're taking it really, really easy, you might need less than 40 grams. It's a bit of a personal thing. But yes, I would say like really do think about fueling. If you're doing the 5K, the 10K or the 15K, you're grand. If you're doing 1.5 or 3, just make sure you arrive well fueled for 1.5 or 3K. But you can absolutely, like, you will not need to eat during those distances, but 5K, 10K and 15K, really, this is worth paying attention to, because so many people, if they're doing a longer swim, this often is the number one thing that catches people out, is they get a crash of sugar depletion, and it really can scupper you. Well, it can make you feel, it affects people in different ways. For some, it can be game over. For some, it can mean you get very, very emotional. Like for me, I just cry if I get too low on sugar. So start to recognize what your signals are. Maybe if you do some long swims between now and then, but yeah, make sure those sugar stores are well topped up. Cannot stress that enough. Choose your format of your carbs. Some people like to eat them as gels because of the convenience and speed of taking them. Some people like chews. You can pop these in your toe float. Carb drinks, again, are something you can pop in your toe float. Carb drinks are great. You can get these ones that are like electrolytes and carbs combined, and then double whammy if you're concerned about hydration. But I would say test everything you're considering beforehand. Ideally, nothing new on race day, which is the next point. It's just really not the day to be like, I think I'll experiment with the gel for the first time of my life. It just can make you feel quite uncomfortable. It can make you feel a bit nauseous, or it can just not work for you. So yeah, definitely do train with whatever fuel you want, whether that's like a banana or jelly babies or gel. You can just pop it at the end of the poolside, or you can pop it in your locker and just take it midway through a swim and just see how it makes you feel. And keep fueling to the end. So this is particularly for those people who are doing, I would say, 10K or 15K. And it's very common that your body and brain will give you signals that like, ooh, I feel a bit icky, I don't really want to eat. Often that is when you most need to eat. Like if you're starting to feel this ick about food and you are 9K, 8K, 12K, 13K into a swim, it's often a sign that you just really need to get that sugar in. So yeah, don't give up on fueling too early, because it can sometimes mean it makes that last bit feel quite hard. Moving on to race day. This was us at Great North Swim. So this is Rowan on the left, who's a journalist for Outdoor Swimmer magazine, who you might have read some of her amazing articles. She's one of our catchlings. And Adele on the right, she's called Swimming Adele on Instagram, and she's also a catchling. She's amazing. Go and give her a follow. She's so funny. She's a mega long distance swimmer. So stick to your plan and swim your own race would be what I would advise in a nutshell. And what I mean by that is arrive early. I have made this mistake. When I did Dock2Dock last year, I cut it quite fine, and I was like running through the Excel center to get there on time. So that was a rookie error. Just give yourself so much time. I'm sure you all know what London travel's like. It just does take longer than you think. So just give yourself time to like settle in, get yourself kind of relaxed into your kit, get yourself sorted. There's always plenty to do. Loads of time is good. Do actually listen to the briefing. It's not like one of those things where, when you're sitting on a plane and you kind of zone out and they're giving you the safety briefing. Like the race briefing is really, really worth listening to, because you will probably hear stuff that you didn't know about. And it will be things like the course. So yes, I would say like the race briefing often gives you so many nuggets of gold. And just study the course, because it's something you can do in advance of getting in the water, and anything that helps you feel more confident, less disoriented, is a brilliant thing in open water. And final thing before you start is setting 3 goals. People love this, and I love this too. So set yourself a bronze, a silver, and a gold goal. So your bronze is something where you'd be still really proud of it. So it could be to complete the distance. Maybe it's further than you've ever swum before. Silver, that could be a time goal. I tend to caution people against time goals, because in open water the conditions can be so changeable, but the Docklands tends to be quite predictable in its conditions, relatively calm. So if you do want to go for like a push yourself for a certain time, maybe that could be your silver goal. And then a gold would be like, you'd be over the moon with that result. Like that's a total stretch. So yeah, have a think about that. Again, if you've got pen and paper, feel free to jot that down now if you've got any thoughts. Now, when you're in the water, start slower than you think. This is a really big one. So every distance at Dock2Dock is what's considered a long distance swim. So whether that's 1.5k or 15k, it is all a big distance. And for you, it might be a big distance. So I would say, like, preserving your energy at the start is really important. Don't go nuts. I mentioned that this is something I see all the time, is people get really excited at the start and like sprint out, and it's just, you know, it makes it less fun in the second half. So save your energy. Sight regularly. We've talked about sighting. I sight pretty, it depends on the conditions, but pretty much I sight every 6 strokes, just to give you an idea, an example. Keep your breathing as relaxed as possible. That really helps over longer distances. I really do think focusing on your own rhythm, your own pace is so important, and ignore everyone else. I mean, in the sense of, don't compare yourself to speeds other people are doing, or looking around and seeing if you're still with someone who was swimming next to you earlier. Like, just focus on yourself. It's your day, it's your event, it's your playing in your lane. It's, you know, it's not about other people. Everyone's there for different reasons, everyone's got different experiences. So yeah, really focus on yourself first and foremost, no comparisons. And then if nerves spike, you can do this thing where, like, if panic hits, for instance, some people really struggle with moments of panic and open water, and that is so normal. What I would suggest is just, you can head off slightly to the side of the course where people are swimming down the channel. Just move yourself over slightly to the side. You can actually roll onto your back if that helps you breathe easier, and just breathe really deeply. Just get yourself back grounded to your breath. Reset, and then carry on. Like, often this will only take 10 seconds, 15 seconds, which is nothing in an event like this. So have a chat with a kayaker if it helps. The safety staff are absolutely amazing. Like, I had a chat with a kayaker when I was swimming, and it was so great. And I had to chat with someone at an aid station, and it was such a blast. So, like, they are so good and so helpful. So yeah, like, have chats as you go. Like, it's, you know, we're all there for a fun day out, and if it will help you feel better in a moment of feeling less good, then definitely do it. That's actually all I have planned for today, which leaves plenty of time for questions. So yeah, I'm going to jump into the chat now and just kind of work through a few comments and questions that you have. But thank you so much, everyone, for being so attentive. Bear with me a second while I just stop sharing my screen so I can see you all. Brilliant. Okay, so David, I'm just going to grab your question here. Cramp, yes. Okay. So never had it in open water, but get it in my pool swims quite regularly. Any advice? Yes, we talk about this on Catch all the time, because you're not alone in feeling this with swimming. Cramp is a little bit of a mystery though, and it's really individual. So lots of people have different causes of cramp, but what I would say is, usually the number one thing with cramp is, have you done something somewhat unusual? So for some people, they get cramp on a longer swim or a more intense swim because their body is surprised. And so anything that could surprise your body can lead to greater chance of cramp. The other thing I would say is dehydration is often a cause. So it's quite interesting what you said about that you do get it in the pool, but you don't in open water. It might be that you're regulating your temperature a bit better, and dehydration is less likely to be a cause. And interestingly, I didn't mention this, but actually this is another good case for carbs and fueling. So some people will get it on a swim where they're swimming for quite a while but haven't had anything to eat. Maybe they haven't had anything before they got in, haven't had anything during. So if you deplete your sugar stores and your carbs, again, that can show up as cramp. So what I would suggest, the best ways of alleviating risk of cramp is conditioning. So it's just not overloading yourself, getting to event day feeling kind of decently trained and conditioned for it, so it doesn't shock your body. The next is being hydrated and fueled. And one other bonus tip I will give you is people are more likely to get cramp if they like push off something, like a push off the wall, or if you push off like the aid station, something like that. So moving continuously and not doing any like jarring movements is also a really good way to alleviate the risk of cramp. And I would say if you do all of those things, you're much less likely to have it affect you, but generally a great sign you haven't had it in open water. A few more questions coming in here. Recommendation of okay, so food supplies, that's going to be coming. I obviously don't work for Dock2Dock, but that will come as part of your race pack, which will be sent over to you in the coming couple of weeks, I believe. Recommendation of how often to sight. It depends a little bit on the conditions. So in choppier conditions where you have less good visibility, it's better to sight more often. If you have great visibility and you've got lots of tow floats helping you lead the way, and the water is sort of clear, like you can see some feet in front of you and you can see where the crowd are moving, you can get away with sighting a bit less. But I tend to find like sighting at least once every 10 strokes is worth doing. And that's why it's something really worth practicing, because you can imagine over the distances we're talking about, right, whether that's 1.5k or 15k, you're going to be sighting a lot. So that's where it is really worth practicing. And I can drop in a link to my 5-minute lesson on YouTube if that's helpful, so you guys can have a look at yeah, basically the how-to guide for sighting. So I'll just drop that in the chat now. But yeah, so we're just scrolling on. So there's some helpful tips here about cramp. Yeah, I agree. I think there's some technique elements to cramp as well, where if you start moving in a way that's like different or a bit more jerky, then that can cause yeah, that can cause issues. First time, what's the advice on wetsuit versus swimsuit, pros and cons? Well, I recently did a panel where we did a talk about wetsuits versus skins, swimsuits. So again, it's so personal, but I can kind of talk you through the fundamentals, which is the benefits of a wetsuit are it keeps you warmer. So if you're doing a swim that's longer than you're used to in open water, it's a way to stay warmer for longer, which is really helpful. It makes you more buoyant, so it lifts you up higher in the water, which makes your life easier. Note back to what I said earlier about technique, which is reducing drag, and having your body high in the water makes you a stronger, better swimmer, faster swimmer. So people in wetsuits will typically go faster, and that's why there's a split kind of results and, you know, split prizes for fastest, you know, wetsuit swimmer, fastest skin swimmer. It's, yeah, so it's basically warmth, buoyancy, speed. The benefits of swimsuits and skins is that sometimes people really like the feeling. It feels kind of more freeing, and it's, some people, that's what they're used to, and some people find like the sizing and fit of wetsuits hasn't been quite right. Like they haven't found a wetsuit that really makes them feel super comfortable in the water. So yeah, ultimately it's a bit of a personal preference thing. If you're thinking of getting a wetsuit, I would go for it like ASAP, just so you can really test that fit and comfort, because that can sometimes be a bit of a challenge for people. Worried about being it too warm for a wetsuit? Yeah, to be allowed for a wetsuit. So that would be a question for the Dock2Dock team, who can drop any guidance in the chat about that, and I'm sure that will be in the race info that gets sent to you soon. But and they can advise you on the past. I've only ever done Dock2Dock in a wetsuit personally. September, it's yeah, it's so hard to say. It's been such a baking summer, hasn't it? So yeah, that's a question that the Dock2Dock team can jump in on. Oh, there's a bit more feedback there from Meredith. Perfect. So Meredith is one of the Dock2Dock team. Wetsuits have never been banned. The team are going to keep you updated. Any current in the water that may assist you? So not really. It's basically like you shouldn't expect it, because you're doing loops of the same dockland. So even if there's like the lightest current, you'll be swimming back against it anyway. So it's an unassisted swim, and that's where it's really worth sort of training, conditioning yourself up to be able to swim that full distance. How do you get food out of your tow float? Good question. Can be a bit faffy. It depends on your tow floats. Some tow floats have a separate section where you can open just one little pouch. more and more I've noticed toe floats are starting to introduce these mesh pockets, which are even speedier for getting out snacks. But yeah, you might need to unroll and open if it's one of the kind of more straightforward, just all it is one big pouch. It's just one of those things where it's worth it. Like, it's worth a little bit of faff to get your snacks and your drinks out. It's worth it for feeling good and feeling fueled. Yeah, okay, great. So David's given some feedback again about degree the temperature of the water and likelihood of wetsuits being down, which sounds pretty minimal. Great, keep the questions coming. I'm just scrolling up a little bit. So yeah, toe floats are compulsory, just in case anyone was wondering. Yeah, just to build on Van's point about Ocean Lube being a really good anti-chafe cream. It is, I use it. It's really, really good, and it's natural, so it doesn't leach kind of bad things into the water. Any other questions? Just having a little look. No more questions. So yeah, like keep any questions coming. If not, I'll let you go in, have your dinner and enjoy your evening. Let's see. Oh, okay, so we've got a few questions coming in here. Any tips on not getting tangled in my toe float if it's windy? Yeah, this is a thing. Make it shorter. So pull the strap so that you're making it the shortest you can. I know some people who have tried doing this trick where you basically spin the toe float around and pop it in between your legs and swim like that, where your legs are basically kind of guarding the toe float. And again, it kind of does the same thing, which is it shortens the leash. But I know some people who actually, they hate swimming like that. So it's actually quite good practice to like play around with different ways to swim with your toe float. But my number one tip for if it is a bit windy, shorten the leash. If it brushes against your hand as you're swimming, just accept it. Like, don't let it annoy you. I've had this before. I swam one of the ultra swim events in May in Croatia, and we had like the most horrendous conditions, super stormy, and our toe floats were going like in every direction. And I think what you need to do is just kind of calm your mind a bit and be like, this is not actually ruining my swim. It's just a bit annoying. So it's partly just a mindset thing with the toe floats. If it's not windy, you will not even notice that you've got it on. So just having another look at, yeah, drinks on the route. There are drinks on the route, yeah, so those will be at the aid stations, and the team will share more specific details about what those are soon, but there will definitely be water, for example. So no, like, not absolutely necessary to carry it. But I noticed in the pre-questions someone wrote that they find themselves getting really dehydrated in swims. So if you know that's a problem for you, it's worth just chucking in some water into your toe float if in doubt. Let's have a quick look at any more questions. Yeah, recommendation for someone who tends to get swimmer's shoulder. So yeah, I feel your pain, literally. I'm struggling with a shoulder injury at the moment. It's not an easy short-term fix, I would say. It depends a little bit on the injury, on the niggle, like how painful it is and what the damage is looking like. But I would say number one tip is strength, mobility. Working with resistance bands is really brilliant. We're just building a program into Catch at the moment, so everyone will get their own strength, mobility, resistance bands kind of workouts that will go alongside the plan. What you can do is you can go to, like, every time you go for a swim, if you're able to just get a resistance band, off Amazon or wherever, super cheap and easy to get your hands on, and just do a few exercises that just activate the shoulders. So the most vulnerable to getting injured with swimming, particularly as you start to load up your distances, is your rotator cuff, which is basically the small muscles that you will feel kind of at the front and maybe the back of your kind of the top of your shoulder. It's unfortunately, it can happen with like repetitive movements like swimming, but also overloading. So that's the other thing that you can do to avoid it, is don't overload your training. So don't cram and like hike up your distances and volumes and intensity very quickly. That should be a gradual thing. And my final thing is good technique. It really, really helps prevent shoulder injury. It's not a perfect thing, but people who are able to basically propel themselves through the water in a way that puts less stress on those small shoulder muscles, they are way less likely to injure their shoulders. So it's basically those things we talked about. It's reducing drag, so you're not unnecessarily like hurling yourself through the water and putting lots of strain on those shoulders. But it's also, there's certain techniques you can learn, like the catch, that help to move the basically they help to engage other muscle groups that are less likely to get injured. So the lats, which are on your back. So yeah, learning good technique is a really good way of offsetting that. But I'm sorry to hear you're having that problem, Martin. Like I said, I feel your pain right now. Yes, so Meredith has mentioned that there will be electrolytes and water on feed stations, so that's great, and that there will be more information on that in the swimmer briefing. Is it common for wetsuits to chafe in longer swims? It is so common. I'd be shocked if it didn't. Like, it's amazing if your wetsuit doesn't chafe on longer swims. It's just a sad reality of wearing a wetsuit, which I would add to my previous comment about the wetsuits versus skin swimsuits debate, which is yeah, I mean, anyone can chafe, but it's most likely when you're in a wetsuit, unfortunately. So I would suggest just like really layer on the anti-chafe cream, like go nuts with it. Just layer it on, and yeah, hopefully that will protect you much better than if you weren't wearing any anti-chafe. Breathing tips: if you swallow water or begin choking, yeah, absolutely. So in sort of slightly counterintuitively, what can happen is if you're trying to lift your head up very high out of the water, you can actually be bringing your eyes up very high, but your chin stays quite low to the water level. So imagine, sort of, just gonna do a little demo here. Imagine if you're swimming and you bring your head up like this. What happens is your chin is still very low to the waterline, and that can cause you to gulp in water. So even though you think you brought your head up high, your eyes are quite high, but your mouth is low, and it has that knock-on effect of your legs dropping. So what you really need to do is you need to imagine that you're like a barbecue sausage on a skewer, and you've got the skewer coming down your head, and you're just like turning on that line. You're just rotating. It's quite handy that I'm on a spinny chair right now. So what this means is you're basically like, you're turning your whole body to breathe, and you're keeping your mouth quite, you're basically keeping your eyes quite low to the water. And something that can give you an extra advantage in slightly choppier conditions, open water, is if you just focus on bringing your chin up, just lift your chin, that really helps. It's basically when people lift their eyes up, but not their chin, and then they're kind of sinking as well, that's typically when the swallowing water happens. And what I would just say is, if you're in choppy conditions, like, you will get mouthfuls of water, and that's okay. Part of it is just sort of trying to stay calm. So what I always do is, if I get a mouthful of water, I basically take one stroke and then immediately breathe again. So you're just basically, you can splash into water a little bit if you like, but you're kind of finding that opportunity to breathe as soon as possible. Brilliant. Yeah, so Van from Noka has said, can we ask you more questions in your Noka Wild group? And yes, you sure can. So yeah, feel free to keep any other questions coming. It looks like we've not got any more, which is great. Hopefully that's because this has answered a lot of your questions, but I'm just very quickly going to share my screen again, just so you know kind of what you can do next, which is you're very welcome to join us on Catch. Sorry, this is formatted horribly. There we go, that's a bit better. So yeah, I'm not going to push this too much because I know loads of you are already on Catch, but feel free to scan this QR code with your phone or join us at catchswim.com, and definitely use that Noka code, which is Noka26 in capital letters, because that gives you a hefty discount if you want to join us on Catch Gold. But yeah, so personalized training plan, technique video course, one-to-one coach chat with me, and loads more. If you join now, you will actually get 30 days free, and then you only have 2 weeks till Dock2Dock. So you might as well if you're not already. So yeah, that's the kind of final note from me. But it's been so wonderful chatting with you tonight. Again, thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful evening. You will want to, I'm sure, get on with your dinner and start carb loading now. Why not? But yeah, it was so lovely to chat with you. I absolutely love this event. You're going to have a blast. I'll see you there. Yeah, I'll be there running some warm-ups. We'll be there with our catchdowns. So come over and say hi and let us know if I've helped you in any way, shape or form. But thank you for all the thank yous coming in. That made me feel much better. Thank you, Caroline. I'm so glad. David says, good luck, everyone. Van says pasta with many exclamation marks, and she's not wrong. Seeing lots of nice emojis coming through. So yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great evening and see you at Dock2Dock. Bye everybody.